Okay, so one more question that got asked during the session was about the part where we were discussing communication strategies. And the question was from a participant who said that he is getting a feedback that his presentations are not very clear and that he seems to be jumping from one topic to another topic. So what can he do about it? Great question. Now, first of all, clear communication is a sign of clear thinking. If your presentation is not coming across clearly, then it is a sign that you yourself are not very clear about what message that you want to send across. It's clarity of thinking even before you start to prepare your presentation is of critical importance. You need to clarify your own thinking. In fact, when a publisher is talking to an author who's about to write a book, they actually ask them to tell them in one sentence of not more than 12 to 15 words of exactly what that book is all about. And the logic behind that is that if they are not clear themselves, then it is quite unlikely that their audiences are going to be clear about what the message is. So here are 4 things that you can do to ensure that your presentation, your communication is coming across clearly. And it is not about just a presentation, any interpersonal communication also. If you were to follow these things, you are more likely to come across clearly in your articulation. So point number 1, clarify your thinking. Second, use one theme per presentation. Third, use a structure. And fourth, use transitions. So let's just talk about each one of them one by one. First of all, clarify your thinking. So how do you clarify your thinking? How do you get your mind to focus and answer that? And one thing that I do before I start to prepare my own presentations is I physically take down on a piece of paper, I will write down what is the objective of my presentation? What am I trying to achieve with this? And the way I would do it is by writing my objective of making this presentation is to do blank, or my objective of making this presentation to my audiences is to get them to do blank. Now, what it does is that it forces you to define the outcome that your presentation is going to have once it is successfully concluded. Once you get that, you are able to answer the same question in your audience's mind when they're asking themselves, why are they here? What exactly are they doing? And the second point here, very important, that you have a central theme, a single central theme for your communication. The minute you try to accommodate more than one theme, then it is going to create confusion in your audience's mind. So you should have one single central theme for your communication. When you're talking about executive presence, you're only talking about executive presence. You're not talking about presentation skills. You're not talking about values. You're not talking about body language. You're talking about executive presence. Yes, you are talking about all those other things, but those are the key messages which support your central theme of executive presence, right? So you can have multiple key points as long as they support the central theme of what the presentation is all about. So that's the second thing. Third part, follow a structure. Even those presentations which are impromptu follow a structure. They follow a framework. And that's why it becomes easier for them to, on the fly, be able to make those presentations which are articulate. And there are many different structures that can be used and they can be followed. But the basic foundational structure is where you answer these 3 questions for your audiences. That is the why, what, and how. Why am I here? What is the benefit that I'm going to get by listening to you or investing my time? And that is the first question that your audience is asking. Simon Sinek also says, start with why. Why? Because that is the part where the motivation or the reason for the audiences to be there is defined. And you have a very short window to grab their attention, maybe 1 or 2 minutes in the beginning of your presentation to get your point across to them and answer that question in their mind about why they are there. After about 2 minutes, they start to lose interest if you don't come to the point. Once they have lost interest in your presentation, they will not be paying that much of attention and it is not going to be very clear for them. So you need to first answer that question, why? Second thing, so once you have been able to address that question in their mind of why they should be listening to you, they're thinking, okay, I get it. I know why it is important. I never thought about that. Now that I know that it's important for me, now tell me, what do I do? And that is where your next question comes in. What is it that you are proposing? What are you suggesting? What are you recommending? And your presentation is the answer to that question, which is popping up in your audience's mind. What do I do now? Right. And this is where you articulate the different key messages. This is where you talk about the key points that you have already prepared and where you want your audiences to pay attention. And assuming that you have done a good job of addressing that question of what coming to their mind. So once you have done that, then the last part is how do you do it? And this is where you talk about the process. This is where you talk about the step number 1, step number 2, step number 3, and step number 4. So going back to our example of executive presence, we started out by saying, why is executive presence important for you? Because the environment is changing. Once you got that picture, that is when I introduced those 2 frameworks of signature voice and the ACE framework. These are the different elements. These are the different levers. When you pull those levers, and that's when you can start to build your presence. What are the different pieces and how do they work and how do they work together? Now, when you articulate or create your presentation, prepare your message in this sequence of why, what, and how, it gives a logical structure that appeals to your audience's mind. And that's when it becomes clear for them. Why? Because you are taking them from point A to point B in a logical step-by-step manner. And that's what brings clarity to your audience's mind. And the 4th point to be clear in your communication is using transitions. So what are transitions? Every now and then, when you are moving from one point or one key message to the next key message, you need to help your audiences to transition from that point to another point. And some of the transitions can sound like this. Now that we have seen why is this important for us, now let's have a look at what are some of the ways that you can achieve the results that you're looking for. Or in the past, we have done something like this. Since the market has changed, it is important for us to look at some new strategies. So here are these 2 strategies, and that give cohesiveness to your presentation. And it would not look like you're jumping from one point to another point. Point number 2, point number 3, point number 4, when you do something like this, it becomes monotonous and it does not come together. It does not have the cohesiveness of a story. Your audiences are trying to make sense of the different pieces of information. And if you help them to string those pieces of information in one single cohesive structure, then it makes easier for them to absorb the information that you're communicating. And it's more likely that they would understand better whatever that you are trying to say. Okay, so in summary, here are these 4 points again. Start off with an objective to clarify your thinking. Have a single theme for each presentation. Use a structure of why, what, and how in that sequence, and use transitions to bring your points together. So use these strategies next time to make a clear and crisp presentation, and I will see you in the next video. Bye-bye.